Welcome to Z's and Threes.
For three for the win. Yes!
And then there were 8. 4 in each conference. One of these 8 teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Indiana Pacers, New York Knicks, Boston Celtics, Oklahoma City Thunder, Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Golden State Warriors, will be the NBA champs this year. What a first round it was. 2 Game 7s, 2 upsets seeding-wise, a throwback series with plenty of controversy. 7 of the 8 teams, though, through to the NBA semifinal round there from last year. The Warriors, the lone exception, taking the place of the Mavericks. There's plenty to look forward to for the semifinal round that's already underway. In one of the series, the MVP race will be decided on the court between the Thunder and the Nuggets. Wolves, Warriors, so many storylines to look forward to there. The Steph against Ant for the three-point king. Jimmy against one of his ex-franchises. Ant against Draymond. Draymond against Rudy. The New York-Boston series. There's so much to talk about. Before we look forward, let's look back. What did we see? What did we learn from the first round? Who was the biggest disappointment, team-wise, player-wise? What was the biggest surprise? And how did my predictions fare? We'll go through the whole first round, recap it all. Welcome to all of our new subscribers, over 2,500. Appreciate y'all. If you're not subscribed yet, please do like, subscribe, share with a friend. Let's talk some ball. What a weekend it was. 2 Game 7s, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, it was in Denver, the Mile High City, where the Denver Nuggets prevailed in 7 over the Los Angeles Clippers. And then Sunday night, the Warriors, Rockets after being down 3-1 in the series, forcing it to a Game 7 with a Game 6 win Friday night in Golden State. But the Warriors prevailing really controlled the game through and through. The Rockets got close within 6 points multiple times later in the game, but Warriors got huge buckets from Steph Curry at every opportunity. And the Warriors, that's why they made the Jimmy Butler trade. So let's start first and foremost. Biggest disappointment of the NBA first round. And to me, it was going to come unquestionably from one series and one series only, the biggest disappointment. You can say, oh, were the Lakers a big disappointment? And no, I don't think they were. If you go back and watch the video where I talked about breaking down first round matchups, I didn't even think that was one of the best series to watch. The 3 series that I said you should watch, Rockets, Warriors, Nuggets, Clippers, and Pistons, Knicks, well, those ended up being the 3 best series. I've watched some ball this year, so, I'll pat myself on the back for those. But the Lakers Timberwolves, I said, was going to be a circus, and a circus is what it was. I think the biggest surprise from that one is how outcoached JJ Redick got. But NBA playoffs have done that to many a first-year head coach, and I think JJ Redick is walking the right path for the Lakers and the Lakers organization. So that was a surprise. But biggest disappointment, to me, it was unquestionably going to come from the Denver-LA series. Because the Denver Nuggets, in spite of all their turmoil going into the postseason, firing Michael Malone, firing their GM Calvin Booth, with just 3 games remaining in the regular season, they won those 3 games to secure the 4 seed and play on their home court. How important was that for Game 7 to be in Denver in front of those fans? It looked pretty important in their blowout victory. So that still got them to the playoffs, and then they had to play a team that had won 18 of their last 21 games heading into. And this was exactly what the Clippers wanted. They finally got the perfect formation of events. A healthy James Harden, and more importantly, a healthy Kawhi Leonard, paired with an all-NBA caliber Ivica Zubac season, who has emerged into his own as one of the best centers in the league, at least playing within that system that he is playing in, along with Norman Powell, who at times, at least early in the season and then through February, had an all-star caliber case. He had an amazing year. So that's how they enter into the playoffs. And then the series starts. And it begins with a overtime victory from Denver. Then another close game. Game 2 was Kawhi Leonard, peak powers. That was the Kawhi game. Kawhi efficiency. He just ate up. Series shifts to LA, and the Clippers absolutely hammer the Nuggets. The Nuggets look like, hey, is everything caught up to them? Is this season going to be the end? But the expectation for the Nuggets is, yes, regardless of all of that tumult, that you still have the best player clearly in the world, the best player in the NBA, in Nikola Jokic. So can you afford to waste? Well, the Nuggets turn around, and Game 4 will always be remembered as the Aaron Gordon walk-off dunk. Ball out of his hands with just milliseconds left, probably thousandths of a second before the backboard lit up red. And this just shows you how thin the margins are. Through 4 games in the series, there was only one blowout, and it was from the Clippers. The Nuggets were blowing them out in Game 4, but then the Clippers came back. So then it became a 3-game set, Denver having home court advantage. Denver takes Game 5, 131-115. The Clippers respond back in taking Game 6, 111-105. Denver never really got close enough. There was the moment with Russell Westbrook, another blown layup, and Russell spoke to the roller coaster experience that is the Russell Westbrook experience. And then come Game 7. So, legacies at stake. And I hate to boil it all down, but a Game 7, that's the best part of Game 7, is that if it goes one way, what it can mean. What does it mean for Denver and the Nuggets franchise and David Adelman, their interim head coach, and Nikola Jokic, if they lose on their home floor in a Game 7 for the second consecutive year? They've played 2 Game 7s over this era. They lost to the Portland Trail Blazers in the semifinals back in 2019. And then they lost last year to the Minnesota Timberwolves in dramatic fashion, blowing a 20-point lead. What would they do on their home court? And for the Clippers, this is what the Clippers experiment has been about: getting a healthy Kawhi to the playoffs and letting him go to work paired with James Harden. What did Game 7 have in store? Well, Denver absolutely blew the doors out from the second quarter on. They trailed by 5 after the first, but it was all Nuggets from there. Got a little closer at the end, but it was blowout time. Denver pulled the starters, had to put them back in. Denver ends up winning 120-101. So Denver advances on. And that, to me, gives the LA Clippers the biggest disappointment of the NBA playoffs first round. This is what you have wanted to do with your Ty Lue. If you're Ty Lue, you're Steve Ballmer, you're the whole Clippers organization, it's can you just get to the playoffs healthy? And they did this year. And yet again, they are out in the first round and enter into another year. I don't think you could have put circumstance together. Yes, Kawhi played under 40 games in the regular season, but he was ready for playoffs. And they didn't lose this series because of Kawhi Leonard. Did they lose this series because of James Harden? Well, that's up to you to make your judgment call. James Harden, I was going back and forth. How much culpability? He had 13 assists in Game 7, but you need your leaders to lead, and you need your leaders to also score. You can't get buckets off of assists. Well, you get buckets off of assists, but they also needed some scoring, and they didn't get it from James Harden. So the Clippers, this is what you wanted. And they failed to deliver once again. So the biggest disappointment of the NBA playoffs first round has to be the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, you may listen to all that and say, there's no way. The Lakers were the 3 seed. They have Luka Doncic, LeBron James. That is ludicrous. They are the biggest disappointment. But the thing with the Lakers is that the Lakers took the 3 seed off of a tiebreaker in the fact that they won the Pacific Division, which the Pacific Division was very good this year. So they were deserving of getting that. But the margin between the 50-win Lakers and the way that things finished, as I pull up the standings, it was a 50-win Lakers team, a 50-win Nuggets team, a 50-win Clippers team, a 49-win Minnesota Timberwolves team, and a 48-win Golden State Warriors team. The Grizzlies won 48, but we see how their season ended. So, point being, the margins were not there. They were minuscule thin. So to see the Timberwolves advance through and the Warriors advance through, yes, the Warriors upset the Rockets as the 2 seed, but the Rockets were early to arrival. This was a team that went 41-41 last year. Yes, they had veteran experience, but I said it time and time again with the Rockets, Jalen Green, was going to be their measuring stick for success. And Jalen Green has a lot of questions heading into this offseason and what he brings as a leader and a scorer. I think he's still young enough that the Rockets don't need to punt, but you take, say, a Devin Booker, swap him out for Jalen Green. Obviously, the Rockets would have to give up a couple of their more treasured assets to do such, but that's a deal you absolutely need. Take Jalen Green off that team, put Devin Booker on that team, and the Rockets are still playing. Timberwolves is a team that went to the Western Conference Finals last year. And the biggest surprise, I think, with the Timberwolves across the course of that series was the way that they gelled together. You saw that Julius Randle really started to fit in. And that's a team that I've watched a lot of over the years. And early on, it looked like an angry team, a team that was dealt a curveball right before the beginning of the season in losing Karl Anthony Towns, a player that they have known throughout the entirety of his career in this era. And then to add in Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, two guys that come in and essentially said, I don't want to be here. It doesn't matter if you've been successful. We don't want to be in Minnesota. Well, this team has played together. They found chemistry together, and that's what made them dangerous. Julius Randle had a great playoff series where he was able to exploit matchups against the Lakers because the Lakers did not have size. So Julius Randle was able to play at a high clip, probably the best he's ever played in the playoffs. So that wasn't a surprise to me because the margin were so thin. If you remember, the Timberwolves blew a 25-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Bucks with 4 games left in the regular season. If the Wolves won that game, I believe that the Wolves would have been the 3 seed, maybe the 4 seed, right? So say it's flipped and say the Wolves are the 3 seed, the Lakers are the 6. Is this result that much of a surprise? Absolutely not. And for the Warriors-Rockets, the question was always going to be the experience of the Warriors against the inexperience and the youth and hunger of the Rockets. The Rockets do have some experience. Van Vliet has won a title with the Raptors. Steven Adams has been to war. Dylan Brooks has been to playoff. But it just wasn't enough. The Warriors' experience prevailed. Steph Curry's shot making, Jimmy Butler's shot making, Buddy Hield, Draymond Green defensively. That series deserved 7. And it was great to see it go 7. I wish Game 7 would have been a better one. Other disappointments, it's all chalk in the Eastern Conference. It was disappointing to me that Knicks Pistons didn't go 7. I thought that series deserved 7 based on how evenly matched those teams were. If you change 2 plays, the Pistons win that series 4-2. And we're talking about the Pistons in the second round after being a abysmal 15-win team last year. But the Knicks, their experience prevailed. And I don't think we see any other surprises across the board in what we saw. So let's go through what my picks were. I wrote down my picks. If you want to go back and pull the receipts, it's out there on one of the shorts. I said Cavs, so I got that right, in 5. Cavs swept. Celtics, I said they would sweep. They won in 5. Gentlemen sweep. Knicks in 6, got that right in both. Pacers, I said in 6. The Pacers won in 5. The Bucks, if you remember, blew a massive lead. And Giannis, all right, so I had Giannis on the template or the thumbnail, excuse me. And you might ask, okay, is that a huge disappointment for the Bucks and Giannis? Absolutely, because they wasted an MVP caliber year from Giannis and another first round exit. They were the 5 seed though, so losing, I guess, you can justify it that way. But when Damian Lillard went down, you can't have that much money tied up salary-wise and then just not have options to go to, especially against a deep team in the Pacers. So is that a disappointment for Giannis? Absolutely. You could see how he reacted at the end of the game. I think he's disappointed, no, unquestionably, as to how the result was. But when you look at what the other circumstances were in the narrative, can't really say, oh, that's a massive. They disappointed in the playoffs. Their season was a disappointment, but now they enter into an offseason with all of these questions. All right, so we were 4 for 4 in the East, and we were 1 for 4 when it came to getting the number of games correct. Let's go to the West. I said Thunder in 6. That series, I think we were robbed. If John Morant doesn't get hurt, maybe they win 2. He was confident enough to say we're going back to Oklahoma City. I thought that could have been a little bit more intriguing, but when Ja went down and people said to me, oh, well, Ja, he hasn't played that well, but still, he's the emotional heartbeat of that team. That may change moving forward, but I was surprised that it was a complete sweep. I picked the Rockets. I picked them in 7. You go to game 7, it's always a crapshoot, and the dice went the way of the Warriors. Played an impressive game 7. So I was wrong there. I said Lakers in 7. My reason was Luka. The one question I had was, would the emotion of everything that had happened across the course of the season with the trade finally catch up to Luka Doncic and show? Nobody had a worse playoffs than Luka in terms of hit to reputation. I think that everything that Nico Harrison had talked about and Dallas tried to push out in terms of the narrative with Luka, it became very easy for people to gravitate towards or find a foothold or handhold, whatever you want to say, if you want to use a climbing reference, when you watch the play of Luka Doncic. There is a lot of Luka haters out there now, and it's only going to get worse because he plays for the Lakers. So did he have a disappointing postseason? I can't necessarily say so. He played great. The Lakers roster just continued to show that they were flawed. Look at the performance they got from LeBron James, and that still wasn't enough to push them over the edge. If you're still looking at Rui Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, Gabe Vincent to be your primary contributors as your 3rd to 4th options, Austin Reeves, I don't know if, obviously, I don't even need to say it, didn't get the job done. They only won a game. So Lakers have serious questions. So we missed on those 2, Rockets and Lakers, and I had Nuggets in 6. Nuggets had a chance to win in 6 after they won 2 consecutive, but then the Clippers forced it to 7. I had seen a couple of expert opinions out there. A lot of experts took the Clippers. Not a lot of belief in the Nuggets, and maybe understandably so given the way that they went into the postseason. But they still have Nikola Jokic, and that game 7 maybe showed you what the Nuggets are capable of as they look to have found some joy back in playing ball with one another. And how about the series for Russell Westbrook? That's an element that will be so fascinating to watch with what he brings to the table going against the franchise that drafted him in the semifinals. Russ is a roller coaster. It's meant to be experienced. There's going to be some good. There's going to be some bad. There's missed shots. Hey, he made his corner threes, and that was huge for Denver. So Z's and 3s, we were of the 8 series. We went 6 for 8. We were only right on 2 of the 8 in terms of games. The Western Conference was harder to call, but that's just the nature of the beast this year. How were you on your predictions for how the first round would play out? I'm happy with what I picked. And most importantly, I tried to sell y'all on what the 3 best series would be, and those 3 best series did deliver. If you didn't watch any of the Rockets Warriors, if you didn't watch Nuggets Clippers, and if you didn't watch Knicks Pistons, well, you really missed some first round bangers. But now we're down to 8. There's 4 in each conference. 7 of the 8, as I said, were in the semis last year. One of these 8 teams will be NBA champs, and the Pacers already. Sunday in the early game, an emphatic win in which they drained the 3 ball. Their depth is on display against a Cavs team that generally uses their depth, although they didn't have Darius Garland. So now we get to set our sights to the day on, day off, alternating as it's go time in the NBA semifinals. News items that are most definitely worth mentioning that happened over the course of the weekend or since we last did a show, and that is San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich no longer operating in that role, taking over full-time as the team's president of basketball operations, and Mitch Johnson, who took over as the interim, being elevated into the head coaching role. Wow. This is significant in that Popovich doesn't get to write his own exit in terms of coaching wise. It's unfortunate that health and the stroke that he had seem to be the reasons that he's going to have to transition into a basketball operations role. So first and foremost, hope that Health is no longer an issue moving forward for Coach Popovich, unquestionably on the Mount Rushmore of NBA head coaches, basketball head coaches all time. So good to see that he'll be sticking around and still in a role within the Spurs organization, but not the most surprising news, I would say, given just the sequence of events, is now Mitch Johnson, keeping it in the family, has an opportunity to take over a roster with the last two rookies of the year, Steph Castle this year, Victor Wembanyama last year. Pair that with De'Aaron Fox, and okay, we'll see what they have down in the Alamo City. Also, Tomas Iasalo, yes, is that, there we go. Isalo, yes, there you go. Interim tag taken off. He is the Grizzlies head coach now. If you're like, why does he keep saying this random guy's name? He was the interim coach, took over for Taylor Jenkins when Taylor Jenkins was let go with week and a half remaining, and they have taken that interim title off. Questions for the Grizzlies. Look forward to breaking them down. I'm going to do a series over the course of the offseason called Where It All Went Wrong. Pretty self-explanatory with the title. We're going to go through every team except for the NBA champions and pick the one thing as to where it all went wrong. Questions for the Grizzlies. Do they potentially trade Ja Morant? Do they build around other pieces within there? Desmond Bane, Zach Edey. What's their idea? They were a deep team that I think were one of the bigger surprises in terms of the way that they played. They cratered at the end of the year. They did not beat a team with an over 500 record for 2 months. Big reason why Taylor Jenkins, I'm sure the lack of results was why he was dismissed. But now the Grizzlies have their head coach moving forward. Speaking of interim head coaches, did David Adelman do enough in winning that first round series against the Clippers to secure the Nuggets job moving forward? I would think so. I think that ownership looked to the remainder of games and then the playoffs to say, okay, well, here's your job interview. Show us what you can do. I'm not ownership. I'm not Denver ownership. I wish it was. But yeah, I think pretty impressive. He aced, especially going up against a coach and a coaching staff so well regarded in the Los Angeles Clippers with Ty Lue, Jeff Van Gundy. Everybody always raves about them. Well, David Adelman and his staff seem to do a pretty good job pulling whichever levers and doing the things that they needed to do in order to win that series in 7. So that's it for news items significant over the week. As you can tell, we've changed the format a little bit. We're just talking some hoops, and as we get to less and less games over the course of the semifinal round, there will be just 2 each night. Probably get a little more looser and just hop on here and chat a little bit. So let me know in the comments if you like where I was coming from. But that is a recap of what we saw in the first round. As now we have whittled the field down to just 8 teams remaining. Is your team still in the NBA playoffs with a chance for the title? If not, where did it all go wrong? What to watch Monday night? Well, I shouldn't have to tell you that these games are both bangers. We see 2 series begin for the semifinal round. Boston, New York, Celtics, Knicks. I mean, come on. It's Celtics, Knicks. Jalen Brunson did a video this weekend. Definitely solicited a lot of commentary. Already a better New York Knick than Carmelo Anthony, in my opinion. They've been to the second round the last 3 years in a row, but needing to get to an Eastern Conference Finals, they have that chance, but this is their biggest hurdle thus far in the Boston Celtics. And then Thunder, Nuggets. Best storyline about this one in the second round is generally when the NBA gives out the MVP award. So one of those players, either Nikola Jokic or SGA, will get the MVP award, but both of those players will have the chance to make their case on the floor. It's going to be fun. Stay locked in with Z's and Threes. If you're not subscribed, please do like, subscribe, share with a friend as we continue to run through the NBA playoffs. We'll see you back here later this week. Peace.